Hello, welcome back. Well, I want to be honest, it's been a while and I know I'm sorry about that. Got a lot on my plate. If you watch my updates, my last updates, you'll know exactly what I mean. Uh, I'm going to talk about this is an entertainment video. I'm going to talk about a couple of things here. Sony, Disney not signing that deal, whether that's a conspiracy theory to keep them relevant, or whether it was a overreach by Disney, or the point is that this I feel needs to be talked about in the sense that it's two companies that just want to make money, right? And one wanted more for doing the same amount of work but getting paid less. So if you look at it this way, Disney wanted a deal with Sony when there was no deal that existed, but it involved getting Spider-Man into their universe. So if you want something, let's say you want something from me, you're going to have to give a lot to get what you want, right? So you're going to, just for me to hear you out, I'll let you have this, I'll let you have that, but let's just do business together. Well, that gets your foot in the door. That gets the first deal made. So now that two movies have gone through the pipe and Spider-Man showed up in other Disney movies, and he's fully entrenched in the whole franchise now, and they built him up. This may have been a plan, but you gotta be like completely honest. It would be like, all right, they did this with the plan if it was a lesser character. To have anything less than this with Spider-Man would be like, what are you guys doing? It's the flagship character. The flagship character that's not even in the main MCU unless Disney says or Sony says it's okay. Disney threw out the biggest sweetheart deal just to get their foot in the door. Just to do business. Just to have their one flagship character. Iron Man's not the flagship character. Captain America is almost the flagship character, but he's on his way out by ways of Chris Evans. So where's your flagship character? You got to do anything to get that character. So they did. They said to Sony, we'll get 5% of opening weekend. You get the other 95% of opening weekend, and then you get every other day after that until you pull it from theater. And we pay for the movie 50-50. So if the movie costs $100 million to make, you spend $50 million, I spend $50 million. Oh yeah, and all the merchandise I get. This is Disney talking. They get all the merchandise. So what does Disney get out of this with the first two movies? They spend the amount of money to make it, that's 50%. Then they probably spend 50% on the advertisement campaign, which is going to be more than what the movie cost. When you're advertising to the whole world for airtime and space, that's going to be way more expensive than even making that movie. So you got those expenses that they're splitting down the middle. And it got the MCU to where it is. Now that it's established and it's stable, they made a move that made things unstable by wanting more. So what they apparently wanted was 50-50 in the rest of the weekends for the box office, which would have been a little weird if that's true. Like, let's break it down again. All right, we both spend 50-50 on the prices, on how much everything costs. You get 95% of opening weekend, and then after that, it's 50-50. That's not asking too much to change it to that. But think of it on the other foot. Sony only spends 50% of the advertising campaign, 50% of the movie, and then they get 95% of opening weekend and 100% of every weekend thereafter. Now, someone says, hey, I want you to have less than that. That's easy to say no to. Hey, have less. No, I'm going to keep exactly what I have. So that was the proper response, in my opinion, on Sony. Even though I want Marvel movies to continue. because I'm understanding it from a business perspective. So I'm not mad at either company for playing hardball. It just makes sense on the details if these details are correct. We don't know what goes on in these meetings, and I'm not a lawyer. But then Disney came up with another offer. How about Sony? You can do... We get 50-50 of everything, and you can do your own cartoons. Sony cartoons of Spider-Man. No problems. Apparently that's what made the deal. So now it's back on again. So that's interesting. So no one's the bad guy here. And for Jim Lee's daughter to get mad at both companies, okay, yeah, absolutely. Call them out. Throw them under the bus. Do it. But I just want to say something to her in opposition of her calling everyone out, is that did they or did they not do a Stan Lee montage during their opening credits? That's huge. A lot of people don't take those things seriously when you see 20th Century Fox change the way that they do their opening credit. You know, when they change the coloring and they put some audio in there. I know, but it's a big deal, though. It's not a little deal. And that one was for everyone. Like, if you're a family of Jim Lee and you went to the movie and you saw that, I know that's not a phone call, but you can't say that's nothing. They know that Stan Lee has been put into like almost the same category as Walt Disney. So if you're going to have these two grandfathers of entertainment, it's Walt Disney and Stan Lee. They should have mascots of those people walking around with Mickey Mouse at Disney World and Disneyland. They should do more to honor Stan Lee. There's a lot of ways that you can do it. Not calling the family, that was bad. But at the exact same time, I could see someone not being savvy enough to think, hey, it might be inappropriate if we call. I can see someone out of good intentions not calling. An oversight, I can also see that. I don't know. I just did business with them. I could see that as well. So, that makes it a complicated issue, but the end of the story is that they got back into business again. They signed new contracts, and they're both happy enough to continue. So that's really what the story is only about. Everything else is just spin and reaction. So I hope that you got something out of this. For me, I'm not too worried about it. Disney, I want to continue to talk about Disney. Disney has these movies coming out. You got your Lion King, you got your remakes of all these cartoons. And the thing that I find interesting about this is that there's like no passion in these things. There's no passion. The lines are flat. There was like when you watch Beauty and the Beast, the cartoon, and you got Belle arguing with the Beast, there's chemistry there. There's no chemistry in that live action movie. And then with Aladdin, some classic lines in Aladdin the cartoon. Well, how are they delivered in live action? Flat. So flat. Is the cinematography good? Absolutely. Everything else falls flat in the comparison. Is it horrible? No. It's flat. Flat. You can drink flat pop. You're just not going to enjoy it. So I just wanted to get my 2 cents on the Disney Sony story. It's gone forward. It's fine. They hashed it out. There's billions of dollars at stake. Like let's go back to that story now that I've talked about the Disney movies that they've done that are from the cartoons. They're flat. I'm just going to move on back to the first story. because there's something else I want to say about it, is that when you got two entities that are looking at billions of dollars, not 1 billion, billions, plural. So when you have that much money on the table, ego has to get out of the way. There's no room for it. And here's an example. The first time when Disney wanted to make a deal with Sony, we remember the news. It wasn't going well. It wasn't going well at all. But then the head guy of Sony back east, he calls up the American branch of Sony and goes, "What are you doing? You're fired. Send Cindy in, or Sue, or whatever that woman that took over." They fired that guy, replaced them with a new chairman in America, and got that deal going. Now, I can only imagine and speculate how that went around the first time. That's why I just kind of characterize it that way. Like, what are you doing? You're fired. Get out of there. This is billions of dollars that you don't know that you're playing with. Don't mess this up. So now we fast forward to the second rubble in the road, which was recently. I can imagine the same thing. Someone thinking, yeah, well, let's play a little hardball. Then you get a phone call from back east. What are you doing? Don't do this. Make it happen. So there's just too much money on the table for this to fall through. Now, we'll never know about big projects that never see the light of day, but this was in the light of day. And this isn't the boxing industry where big money fights get talked about and then never happen. That happens a lot in boxing. Not so much in MMA, but enough to be mentioned here and there. But boxing is notorious for big money fights that don't happen because the promoters aren't getting what they want, or the fighters aren't getting what they want, or the venue isn't good enough. Whatever the details are, it's mostly the direct people involved that will cause these big fights to not happen. So since this isn't the fighting industry, this is the entertainment industry, there's just too much money on the table to walk away. So I was not at all surprised that they fixed this up real quick. If you look at it like two mafias, you're going to have one mafia asking the person underneath them that's making this deal, like, no, I'll kill you if you screw this up. Like, this isn't that degree. I'm just using an example that this is serious. This is a serious deal. We all live off of money. It's not monopoly money that's going around the world. It's real money. And it's the difference between life and death for a lot of us. And for these people, it's the difference between keeping an empire going and not. So I'm not surprised at all. And the last thing I want to say about Disney is that you got Disney Plus coming with a lot of shows. And I've been talking to some friends and their thoughts about Disney Plus being cheaper than Netflix, and what availability will they have, and what about their licensing to get all the material they want on their show, on their streaming service. And the thing that Disney did that I think is smart, that I think is a next step, when you're going up against a monopoly like Netflix, you got to do something that Netflix isn't, but not something ridiculous. Like putting a walkie-talkie frequency on a cell phone wasn't a step forward. It was an extra, but it wasn't a step forward. And this is what I'm getting at. So with Disney Plus, what they did in comparison to Netflix is that they put something on that's not like a walkie-talkie and a cell phone. What they put on was the next step of streaming. Disney Plus is not Disney Plus. It's Disney material, and the broadcasting channels that they own added, and it's Hulu because they bought them, and it's ESPN, that too. This was the next step. So when people say, is it worth it or not? Well, if you like the material on Hulu, you like the stuff that's on television, because they own a channel, and not Disney Channel, like another channel. I can't remember whether it's ABC or NBC or whatever it is that they own, but they own one of those broadcasting channels, as well as having the biggest sport entity in the sport world, ESPN, all under one roof. To me, that's genius. So this is why a family buys Disney Plus. The sport fans have something to watch. The people that like comedies and sitcoms and dramas, they got something to watch. And all the children have even more to watch. They needed to figure out, why would a family buy this just for children? Even $8 a month just for children to sit in front of a screen for a lot of people in North America is a lot. It is. It just is. There's not going to be enough for adults to flip through over and over like you do on Netflix on what you want to watch when you're flipping past one cartoon after another. You don't even know what the half of them are. That wasn't marketable. It was very smart of Disney to figure that out, to not fall into the footsteps of other streaming services that are just doing exactly what Netflix is doing. This is why Amazon is also on the right track. They didn't put a walkie-talkie on their streaming service. They put their fast shipping on their streaming service. That's brilliant. You shop online? You like their original content? There's no reason not to have it. So Netflix is looking around and seeing that their competition's gotten pretty savvy and they're adding more. So this is why Disney took out who knows how many billions of dollars of investment on top of all the money that they already had to make all this original content and come out like gangbusters. Like there was whether this is true or not, and I tend to believe that it is that if you had a grading service or a grading system on all the material that you've created, and you let's say you grade it like you look at the grades you got in high school, A, B, C, D, on a grading service or system. It's not failures that get cut, apparently, to the story that I read from Netflix themselves. It's like grading on a curve. It's not that they cancel shows that get C's. It's that they have so much material that's getting graded at an A or a B that it's B's that are getting cut. And anything that pops up like a C or less, obviously it's getting cut. But this is what I mean by grading on the curve, because they're doing so well with most of their original content that it's not even failing shows that get canceled. It's successful shows that get canceled. It's because there's just not enough money to go around to keep it all going. They shotgunned all this material, and everything below a certain line gets cut regardless of how many millions of people watched it. That's the success of Netflix. They just got to add something new. So, is it worth buying Disney Plus? If you buy streaming services and you want to get rid of your cable, have Netflix, have Disney Plus, I think you're set. Have Disney Plus, have Amazon, I think you're set. You buy 2 bundle packages, whether it's whatever service you want, I think 2 and you're good. And if you're getting 2, you're looking at $25 a month or less. Instead of $100 for cable when you're only watching 17% of it. The cable industry had to die, and there's a reason why things like that have to die exactly the way that they did. They didn't care about us. They wanted as much money as they wanted until a competitor came out and killed the option. There's no reason to buy $100 worth of cable when all you need is Netflix for $10, $11, $12. They changed the industry, and then the industry learned. See, this is one thing that World of Warcraft got right that no one else did. They provided a service, everyone copied them, but everyone made the walkie-talkie mistake in the cell phone when it came to competing with the game World of Warcraft. They didn't bring anything new. What they thought was new was just the world. Well, do you like World of Warcraft? I never played it. Okay, how about Conan? Do you know Conan? Well, I watched the movie when I was a kid. Well, there you go. That's what they thought was new. That's just another option. But since something's been around longer than you, why would you even go with the new one? Especially when the product is all about time investment. So this is my opinion about the latest news on Disney when it involves Sony and Disney Plus and the extras, and then Disney movies involving Aladdin and Lion King and all those remakes. These are my thoughts on that. And then I'll close it with this. I find it very interesting that Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, that played Jon Snow, got cast to play Black Knight in the movie The Eternals that's being made by Disney. And The Eternals is going to be another comic book movie. They're a different type of being in the Marvel universe. So you got your humans, that's a being. Then you got your Kree, that's another alien being race. And you got your Skrull, and you got all sorts. And the Eternals are another powerful being, and separate from all of this. And think of them like Olympian gods. They're not Titans. They're not the over deities like Gaia and Rey and all that, but they're powerful entities nonetheless, more powerful than humans. And their cousin race is the Deviants, the Eternals and the Deviants. They're like cousins to each other. And Deviants have already been shown in the MCU, and those the most famous one is Thanos himself. He's a Deviant. So they might do the origin of Thanos in the Eternals, or they at the least, they might do a wink and a nod towards Thanos down the line. But anyway, so that's the latest news with Kit Harington playing Black Knight, which is a character that picks up a magical sword and is infused with power from the sword. And there's been many carriers of that sword. So it'll be interesting how they implement that all together. But I just want to thank you for dropping by. Great to yap at you guys again. I took a little bit of a hiatus there. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll see you again with another video. Thanks for dropping by. Bye.